up with German prisoners of war as labor gangs to lift the boxes, and what we were doing mostly was loading bombs to deliver to Europe. And that was one of the major outputs going out of Boston back in those days, 500,000-pound bombs, and so forth. And I took the test to become an aviation cadet in November 1942. I wasn't called until May of 1943, and when I went to Biloxi, Mississippi, Keesler Field for 30 days of basic training. From there, we went up to Tuskegee Institute for college training detachment. We had some core curriculum courses, math, English geography, history, American government, physics, a lot of military subjects, and we also got 10 hours of orientation in a J3 Piper Cub. From there, we went out to the air base to classification as cadets. As aviation students, we were still privates, and we were getting the humongous sum of $50 a month. But when I became a cadet, I got a big pay raise. It went up to $75 a month. And then through cadet training, I graduated in August of 44, class 44G. Did my P-40 transition at Tuskegee, and then we went to Walterboro, South Carolina, where I did combat training at P-47. My class had the Christmas present of being shipped overseas December 24th. They left Hampton Roads. I and 3 other fellows were fortunate enough to be held back, and we went overseas with Colonel Hardy here, and we didn't leave until March 1st. We arrived in Naples at March 10th and arrived at Ramitelli, our base for the 332nd Fighter Group, on March 14th. Interestingly enough, on March 12th, the last of the pilots of the 302nd Fighter Group, which had been deactivated in February, were sent home from Ramitelli. And I managed to get in 15 combat missions. See, out of the 15 of us that went over, 9 went to the 99th Squadron, 4 to the 301st, and only 2 of us went to the 100th. So we didn't get as many missions as the fellows in the 99th did. But anyhow, I managed to get in 15, and I think by the time we got that many missions, Hitler found out I was there and he quit. But I stayed in reserve after we got out, and until 1984. And as a matter of fact, I went into honorary reserve in 1972. I had been commander of a research and development flight at Berkeley, California. And but anyhow, I was freed in 1984. Quite free.
George, share a little bit about yourself this morning, this afternoon.
I grew up in South Philadelphia and graduated from high school in June of 42. Over the same month I turned 17, so I had to wait a year before I can go into the service. But in March of 73, I took the aviation cadet exam at the age of 17 and passed it. And they sent me home. I was sworn in as a private in the Army Reserve. And they sent me home and said they'd call me after I turned 18, which they did in June. And I reported active duty 13th of July. And I went to Keesler Field for basic and then up to Tuskegee for college training detachment for 3 months. And in December went into class 44H, aviation cadet training, and graduated in September 44. I received additional training at Tuskegee in the P-40, and then the Walterboro in the P-47. And I was there until February when we moved out and we ended up getting to the port to ship overseas. Incidentally, I will say at this time that I was ready to go overseas flying a 47 when my classmates realized I'd never driven an automobile. and so they put me into a LaSalle. Not too many people here remember LaSalles. They were just under Buick, and it was a long one that had the front seat and 2 jump seats and the back seat.
Wow.
And with a bar built behind the front seat. And had a stick shift on the floor. That's the first time I drove an automobile from base ops back to our barracks. Anyway, went overseas and I was assigned to the 99th Fighter Squadron, where I flew 21 combat missions before the war ended. Came back in 1945, went to Tuskegee and stayed there until it closed in 1946. Then went to Lockburn, where all the people colored in the Air Force were at Lockburn, basically there, after Tuskegee had closed. And I flew P-47s for a few months when I was discharged. I was out for a little over about a year and a half. And I went to NYU for 1 year, but then went back to the service in 1948 and into Lockburn in 1948. And I was in the service when integration took place, 1 July 1949. And I was sent to Guam. That is 1 July 1949, everyone at Lockburn received orders shipping them out, and I went to Guam in the Pacific, in the 19th Bomb Group, B-29 aircraft. I was there as an airborne electronics maintenance officer, but as a pilot I had to fly too. In 1950, when the Korean War started, we moved to Okinawa, and I was there until early 1951. And during that time, I flew 45 combat missions over Korea in B-29 aircraft.
Wow.
After that, I came back to the States, and there was a period of racial integration when integration was taking place, and there was some tough times there, but eventually we got through it. And I had a good career in the Air Force, and I ended my service really in 1969 when I went to Vietnam as a pilot in the AC-119 gunship.
Wow.
I was over there for a year and returned in April 1971 and retired in November 1971. So it's good.
Same question, Daniel. He's used to it by now.
My name is Daniel Keel. I'm also from Massachusetts. I graduated from high school in 1941, and in 1943, during my third year at Northeastern University, I was drafted into the Army Air Force. I was drafted, but before I was drafted, I was fortunate enough I took the exam just in case I was drafted. And when I was drafted and I got in front of the assignment board, he took one look at me and said, saw I was black, he said Navy. I told him I didn't want to go in the Navy because it made me seasick. He was going to put me in there anyhow, but I showed him the letter and I ended up at the Air Force. I was sent to Keesler Field for 2 months of basic training. When I got there was 300 of us wanted to be pilots. But before we could go to Tuskegee, we had to take another exam. It was a two-part exam. The first part of the exam was a multiple choice exam, and it lasted 8 hours. The second part of the exam wasn't so bad. It only lasted 4 hours. At the end of a couple of weeks later, when we informed, there were only 30 of us were going to Tuskegee to train to be pilots. When I arrived at Tuskegee Army Air Base, after